Canada is raising red flags over the preponderance of rich mortgages.
One of the constructive effects of the federal housing measures is to really get into those very highly indebted individuals and slow the growth in that. And so that's something that will work over time, and it's not something that's going to be a matter of weeks. That'll be over the next few years. So it'll take some time for that risk to come down.
Even British Columbia's premier addresses the worries when her government announced that loan program for first-time homebuyers.
We should all be concerned about the levels of debt overall across the country. We're one of the most indebted nations in the world, but I think, we need to pay attention to that. But in the meantime, we should also pay attention to making sure British Columbians can own a home, for heaven's sakes.
So a lot of warnings, but not a lot of solutions. So what does this mean for you and me? Patricia Levitt-Reid joins us now for a closer look. Maybe she has some answers. Do you?
Well, I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I do look at everyone talking about this is the national average, this is the national average. And then I sort of stand back and say, I don't really care because it's sort of meaningless to me, but I want to know my debt levels relative to my income, whether it's outstanding debt, what I'm spending, or what I'm paying in a mortgage. And so I think individuals have to stand back, pause, and say, okay, what is my situation? Because some will be out of control and others will be okay. But the reason they're probably okay, and I think you got to look at this really closely, is do you have a job? Are you concerned about inflation? Are you concerned about rates going higher? Because if any one of those gets knocked off kilter, does that mean your household will be knocked off kilter?
And we've talked about this on many occasions, and we know this to be true, but so few of us are engaged in having that rainy day fund set aside for whether or not, when you lose your job, when the roof collapses in on you and starts to leak, or the car gets cracked up.
And I wonder if that's because our financial literacy isn't where it needs to be. Because I do believe if we actually started teaching individuals at a much younger age the value of time and compounding, it's great when you're saving money, but it can be disastrous to your portfolio when you are actually spending money and that debt continues to be kicked down the road and you're not making payments on it. But it's not just that. Think about the financial institutions. They love you to have debt products, and I get that. Consumers love to have those debt products, and I get that as well. But the point is we've got to remove and strip the emotions away. And if we're not prepared to help ourselves, maybe the banks have to sort of step in and say, your credit score needs to be higher before we can offer up more credit. Not only that, we often look at getting a mortgage and we'll say, okay, so what's your mortgage, interest, and taxes going to be? We'll throw in heating. Forget about that metric. I don't think it applies anymore. I think you got to look at your total debt obligations and then say, okay, we're going to actually kick that up a little higher.
These are very Gen X baby boomer type situations/solutions. We talk to the millennial generation. They're like, listen, we can barely afford to make rent when we live in these major cities, let alone set aside a little cash for a rainy day. What's the advice to pretty much half the people we work with here at B&M?
You know what? Take the emotion out. Slow down. Hit the pause button. You may not get into the location that you want right now, and this fear of missing out and causing you to take on more and more. Or you talk about the boomers, economic outpatient care to their children. Is that going to set them back? Because here's what we know. We know seniors are retiring with more debt. We know that they are not saving for retirement. They think they can work longer, but they might not be able to. And you think about your golden years. Well, is that exactly what you thought when your lifestyle is going to be compromised? There will be a day of reckoning if we don't sit back, slow down, and say, all right, I'm going to save more and spend less.
And while the cost of money in this country formally isn't going up anytime soon via the Bank of Canada, the bond market moves we've seen since the Americans have been making changes to their world means that it will, in fact, cost us more in the next few years.
That's right. And, there will be some so close to the margin that when you have a 5-year fixed-term rate going to 2.94%, it's not so much the amount right now. It's the fact to say, hey, wake up. You know what? We've been talking about mortgage rates going higher, and they are.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.